You've tuned in to the Weddings in the Smokies podcast. I'm Jake Schick, your host, alongside my co-host Ron Crivellone, who you'll be hearing from here in just a short bit. If this is your first time listening into the podcast, welcome. This podcast is all about helping navigate newly engaged couples through this exciting but sometimes overwhelming journey of planning your wedding day. Today, we're especially excited because we're going to have our first guest with us on the show, and that is Lindsay Barrows. She is the owner of Custom Loves Gifts and Events. Personally, I've known her for a long time. Phenomenal wedding planner. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the number one mistake that couples make without a wedding planner. You won't want to miss this conversation, so let's jump in.
Well, thank you, Jake. I appreciate it very much. Again, welcome to an episode of Weddings in the Smokies podcast, where we hope that you've been following this and some of the education and things that we've talked about when it comes to the wedding industry in general, and of course, Weddings in the Smokies. We hope that you have found it educational and something that look forward to your visit, or if you're planning a wedding in the area. Today, we have a guest on our show, and I'm very excited and honored for this because it's someone who I've worked with many times, who I absolutely love. Someone who's got great education, great insight into the business, who's been in the business for quite a while and truly understands what it takes to grow a business, but to see the trends and understand the changes that are needed in order to continue to exist in an ever-changing industry. As we discussed today, the number one mistake couples make without a wedding planner. So joining us today, a true expert in her field of world of weddings, she is the owner of Custom Love Gifts and Events, a company known for bringing creativity, organization, and unforgettable details to couples' big days. So we're honored today to welcome Lindsay Barrows to the podcast. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, I know that when we were looking at this and what we wanted to do, we both agreed that the first person we wanted to have as a guest was yourself. So.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. Before we dive into the topic today, first of all, I'd love for you to kind of let people know about yourselves. Tell us about Custom Love, how you came up with the name, how it got started, and what inspired you to say, okay, now I want to do the wedding planning.
Oh, that's an awesome question because I don't love our name, so I like the opportunity to kind of explain where it came from. We've been in business for so long and we have a good reputation, and so I haven't felt like changing our name. But when I started originally, I wasn't a wedding planner. I actually started selling wedding favors on Etsy. So I made these adorable little mason jars that had honey and jam in them, and they had cute little fabric toppers and cute little labels, and everything could match your wedding. And so it was Custom Love Gifts because I made personalized, custom wedding favors. So, or baby shower favors or whatever, all these like lovey-dovey events.
Yeah.
So that's why it was Custom Love Gifts.
Which, all right, that makes sense.
And then we added the events because it turned into a full-time job for me. And I was working from home, making all of these favors, shipping everything out, talking to people online. But that was really it. I had just moved here from West Virginia. And so I didn't have office buddies. I didn't have any friends here. My husband would leave to go to work. And I was like talking to Olga behind the desk at the post office because I just needed some social interaction with some people.
Sure.
So I started doing planning just as an opportunity for me to actually get out of the house and just do a little bit of something different than what I was doing with the favor business.
Okay.
So, and then after a while, the planning portion took off to the point where we did great on Etsy. I think I sold over like $600,000 worth of favors, and I could have continued to do that for the rest of my life as a business financially. I would also go insane because I'm a social person, and it was just a lot of isolation.
Sure.
So as we grew with the wedding coordination, now we only do the events. Etsy, I closed in like 2020. It was a good year to close things that were dependent on weddings, guest counts. But it was time for us to close it because we were already ready. I was kind of letting it just run its course because we had grown so much with the events. We do now like between 300 and 400 events a year. There's a pretty big staff that deals with events and deals with clients. We also have a rental business and we manage 3 wedding venues. So there's just enough going on with the day-to-day stuff with that type of business that just Etsy kind of fell to the wayside. Okay. So I kept the name, just nothing else about it.
Which I will get into some of the other things in a little bit later in our podcast, but I appreciate that because even stuff I didn't know. So thank you. I do have a question for you, and kind of just the first one to start things off, but couples at times sit here and they post on the social media of things that they're looking for. And it's like, we're looking for either a wedding coordinator or a wedding planner and that type of thing. And a lot of people, I call them keyboard warriors, who will get involved in the conversation and start giving information of like, oh, well, then you should do this, you should do this. And my thing is always, does that mean that the person who's giving the information is educated or just something what they think might be accurate? So my question to you is there a difference between a wedding planner and a wedding coordinator?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So the way that we price our packages is dependent on whether or not you're trying to get a wedding coordinator or a wedding planner.
Okay.
And I can tell you, if you get a wedding planner, you should be getting both. So we'll start first with a wedding coordinator.
Sounds good.
So we have a package that we call event management, and it's essentially a day of coordination package. Now, I personally don't call it day of coordination because I'm going to start working with you way before the day of your wedding. And for us specifically, even if you're just hiring us as a coordinator, we start working with you as soon as you book with us. And we like to do probably about 4 meetings to make sure that we know the ins and outs of everything. Timing for the agenda, where everything's going to go as far as decor being placed, what's everybody's names are going to walk down the aisle. There's just like a lot for us to go through.
Sure.
What you're not going to get during those meetings is anything that has to do specifically with hiring vendors beyond just a referral or a recommendation.
Okay.
If you want me to sit in on your consultations with 3 different caterers or come attend a tasting and advise you on what works really well at the venue that you're at with a specific menu, that is more of a planner's job versus a coordinator's job. So I think some people divide it up like, well, the planners plan things, they do all the stuff with the vendors, and then the coordinator's there the day of to like help set up, decorate, make sure everybody's in the right spot. But that kind of doesn't give the coordinator enough credit because we are definitely doing meetings and planning and lots of paperwork and coordinating with vendors prior to. But what it's supposed to be is the client hired the DJ, figured out all the details of what the DJ's doing, worked with the DJ one-on-one for that, and then we pick it up when that contract is done and everything's kind of on the checklist of like what the DJ's providing. We pick that up and we make sure it happens day of and everybody's in the right place.
Sure.
If you had me as a planner, we would be talking to maybe 3 to 5 different DJs together. I would have recommended some DJs that were specifically in your budget, offered exactly what you want, ones that I know that have worked at the venue before and fit really well with like the couple's vibe.
Right, yeah.
And so we help with that type of the process versus day of is more, I call it the foundation. And the reason why I say you're going to get both is because if you have a planner and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to plan your wedding, but like, we're not going to be there the day of. I don't even know how to respond to that because so many red flags go off. Like, it's like, okay, well, something's going to go wrong.
Exactly.
Maybe a bunch of stuff. And so you want to have a planner that's also going to have, maybe even if it's not them, because some people don't always plan with you and show up the day of, they send an associate. But you need to have some representation the day of with both packages. And I would argue that you need to have some sort of coordinator representing you no matter what. Even if you can't afford it, then Aunt Sally needs to do as much research as possible online to figure out what a coordinator does and try to mimic it. And then I would also argue, like, can you really not afford it? Or is there something silly that you bought off of Etsy and spent hundreds of dollars on? And I say that because I used to sell hundreds of dollars worth of favors on Etsy. Like, you should have paid for a coordinator instead.
So you brought something up, which I want to ask, because I'm going to do that before I ask the next question. That is kind of like in my profession, and I'll use the term, if they decide to hire Chuck in a Truck as their DJ. So what if they decide to hire Aunt Sally as wedding coordination? What would you tell them if that were the route they were going to go?
Well, anytime that you can go for a professional instead of an amateur, you need to, or a novice. And I don't want to put Aunt Sally down.
Right.
Because Aunt Sally, maybe she did some events. Maybe she's super organized and she's going to do the best she can and it's going to be a pretty good job. If you have somebody that's a professional, they're going to be super organized as well, but they're also going to have years of experience behind you, so you can see a red flag coming like as soon as it happens, and they're going to be able to maneuver with problems a lot faster. So like, I'll give you an example. if you have a DJ not show up, what's Aunt Sally going to do?
Right.
She has that one DJ to call. She has that one relationship that she's made in the planning process.
Exactly.
If I have a DJ not show up for some reason, I have people that I can text instantly that will be like, we'll figure out the money situation later, but I'll be there.
Let's just get there, yeah.
Yes, to make sure stuff is saved because they care that much about just the reputations of weddings in general in this area that they're going to save the day and we're going to figure everything out financially about going after the DJ that didn't show, getting the other DJ paid. We're just going to make it happen. Well, for example, you came as an officiant once because another officiant got into a terrible car accident on the way to the wedding.
Yeah.
And so just having somebody that's able to show up, because the first officiant's son texted me that had happened.
Right.
That officiant could not find a replacement at that moment. He just got into a car accident.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like on a cliff, right?
Right.
And so I was able to reach out to you. You showed up dressed, ready to go, on time. I don't even know if the bride would have noticed it was somebody different because it was so smooth until she heard your voice and realized you don't have the same country accent. But that's an example of, had that been Aunt Sally,
Exactly. Yeah.
she would have had to look up who can legally marry people. How is this okay? Try to go online and just randomly call people. And on a Saturday, on a wedding day, if you get a random phone call, maybe you'd answer it, maybe not. Maybe it's not your office hours. Maybe it is. It's the luck of the draw. If you get a text from me saying, hey, I have an emergency, you're like, oh, okay, let me get dressed. I'll be there.
Yeah.
That's some of the random things that happen, and it's great to have somebody in the industry. But there's just a whole planning process that we're really good at because it's our job to be good at it, that Aunt Sally's not going to know what she doesn't know.
And especially being a professional in the area, you know the nuances of the area as well, which helps.
Yeah, that definitely helps. But I do bring up Aunt Sally as a point of if you truly can't afford it, we're on the budget of budgets, you know? At least have somebody to advocate for you as your personal coordinator, even if it is Aunt Sally volunteering her time. Because if not, then it's you against the world if something goes wrong, and that whole enjoying your wedding day is less likely to happen.
That's a very good point, and I appreciate you for separating the difference between coordinator and planner.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of misinformation. As someone who stalks Facebook, and I do, but I do it for multiple reasons. I see the miseducation a lot of times on different posts. So,
yeah. You want to know something funny, though?
Yeah.
When I was planning my own wedding, I had no idea what a wedding coordinator was. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know that you could have one of those. I was just like, I don't want a planner, so I'm just not even going to look into that. And I didn't. And I was like, oh, so there's this planner light version I could have had on my wedding day to take the stress off of me and handle everything. I wish I would have known that.
Oh, that is funny. So I know from my standpoint, if someone decides to do it yourself when it comes to entertainment with technology now, they could do a Bluetooth speaker, Spotify list, whatever they want to do. And I often give them the saying, here are the things that could happen by not coming up with a budget for entertainment. So what would you tell someone a mistake might be by not having a planner or coordinator?
Oh, okay. So I would say if we're just trying to think of the most important thing of every wedding day, hands down 100%, it's time. Timing of things is the most important thing. Oh, of course, y'all are getting married, it's the best day of your life. But secondary to that, it's timing.
Yeah.
And if you have a coordinator that is somebody that is watching the time for every person the entire day that's involved in your day. So we're going to be checking and making sure hair and makeup is on time, because if it's not done on time, and it's the most that's the most likely,
that
actually
pushes other things
pushes
back.
everything out, and it's maybe not even the hair and makeup artist's fault, honestly. A lot of times people are 10, 15, 20 minutes late on a wedding day. Can mess up all kinds of stuff. So if hair and makeup is running late, then photography might be running late, all the way down to the ceremony could be running late. If catering is if we're pushing food service back, now you're going to have cold food. So all of that stuff happens because of timing. So specifically when you have a coordinator there, they're watching the time to make sure people are on point, because sometimes it's silly stuff, the bridesmaids are chatting and talking and stuff and nobody's sitting in the makeup chair. Just silly stuff. But other times it's things that we understand that this is going to be a problem and it's going to set your timeline back and there's nothing we can do about it.
Sure.
Best example I have is rain. Just ceremony's either going to have to be pushed
Mother
back.
Nature.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. Or really, a lot of people don't think about wind, but that is also, like, wind is actually my worst fear, not a rainy wedding day, a windy wedding day. So if you don't have a coordinator, you don't have anybody on your side watching the clock, unless you're sitting there on your wedding day, like you have an Apple Watch in all of your pictures because you kept it on your wrist. Or I did have a bride once who, like, checked her cell phone every 10 minutes to make sure we were on time, and, like, double checked with us that we were, like, on time to the point of, like, 10-minute check-ins. And I was like, her wedding day had to be awful. She ruined it for herself. She didn't enjoy anything because every 9 minutes she picked up her phone to make sure that it was running smoothly. And either you're that person, if you don't have a coordinator, where every 9 minutes you're checking your phone, or your mom is the person doing it, or your maid of honor is the person doing it, or nobody's checking. And the food is cold because catering had to be served late. It wasn't the caterer's fault, but just you guys weren't ready to come in on time. You didn't get sunset photos because nobody timed sunset right. You were in the middle of eating and greeting people, and the sun went down.
Yeah.
So you can either miss stuff, or you have to have somebody that is not enjoying your wedding because they are taking care of business the entire time. Which, that's why I say poor Aunt Sally got voted in to do this job for free. But even if you can't hire a coordinator, have somebody do that is not your immediate parent. It's not your best friend. And it's definitely not you.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I can vouch for the weather because I actually think there was a wedding that we worked together to where during the ceremony, all of a sudden we had what I call tsunami winds.
Yeah. I've had cocktail tables flip over before. Like, forget about, like, the tea light candle getting blown off the cocktail table. The whole table, all three of them, shattered. So, everything on it shattered. So, wind is an issue. Rain is an issue. That's the other thing, too. Even talking about rain, having a professional, if I know rain is coming, I know exactly how long it's going to take for us to shift from one place to another with your ceremony. And I know how that's going to impact your event. Like, if we need to move cocktail hour now, if it's going to impact
plan
the
or
guests.
Something, yeah.
Yes, if it would be better to hold for 15 minutes and just start 15 minutes late and leave everything where it is. And then also, there's this very high level of anxiety of, like, oh my gosh, am I ruining their wedding? Like, is it going to rain and I'm going to make everybody go inside? Or is it not going to rain and everybody went inside and she didn't have the outdoor ceremony she wanted and it was because of me making the wrong decision?
Right.
You could maybe not put that on Aunt Sally's shoulders. And you can put it on my shoulders where I've done it a million times, so I kind of know what's going on. But also, I don't have this level of anxiety because we have a system to make sure that we're doing the right thing when it comes to weather.
And unfortunately, East Tennessee weather has its own mind. So even when we think we know, it can backfire.
Well, and then also, what's the months where it's, like, most likely to be windy and like, weird about weather?
Yes, and we're coming into those months.
The busiest months of the year, yeah.
So speaking of which, so we are on the cusp of our fall season, which means most wedding professionals will see very little of their families, very little rest and everything because of the busyness of the fall seasons, which also segues into engagement season. So my question to you is that a couple decides around the holidays that they're going to get engaged. At what point, once they get engaged, should they start thinking about, should we look into a coordinator or planner?
I mean, it is a smart idea to do it before you look at anything else. And I'm not saying that it's like a shameless plug. I'll give you, like, the real reason why I'm saying it. Is because when you're looking at a venue, there's specific things about a venue that they're going to sell as far as amenities. There's some other things that they may or may not tell you that could be issues, right? One of the main things that I can talk about, because this has happened, I've had experience with it, is if the entire venue is wheelchair accessible, right? So let's say Dad's in a wheelchair. Is the venue wheelchair accessible? They say yes. Well, how wheelchair accessible is it? Can Dad wheel his daughter down the aisle, or is there one step? And it's going to mean that moment that he's been waiting for and she's been waiting for of walking her down the aisle isn't going to be able to happen because Dad maybe can't get, maybe it is wheelchair accessible, but that specific ceremony site is not.
Gotcha.
Right? So that's a big thing. Dad's in a wheelchair, so let's ask those questions and make sure that we can accommodate him. But there might be other little things about the venue where it's actually just not a good fit for you. Maybe you have 12 bridesmaids and it's got a closet for a bridal suite. And it's really important to you that you hang out and have all this moment with your girlfriends the morning of. So if you have the budget to hire a wedding planner first, and you at least know the area that you want to be in, there's a lot that you are going to benefit from talking to them first before you look into a venue. And it could be savings on moving to different days or different months. It could be them having a specific vision and saying like, all of this stuff is going to happen at this venue. And me be like, I'm sorry. For one, I know the venue's not going to allow a petting zoo because we've literally had that question before. That's not going to happen on your wedding day. So like reining some people in on their vision and just be like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do that. There's a few other things, too, that I can tell you. There's some venues that list their capacity way higher than I think it should be. How many people can you fit and how many people can you fit comfortably?
Are two different things.
Things. And also, how many people can you fit with the vision that you want? For example, if you're going to have a band versus a DJ, like what's your footprint for a DJ booth?
Usually 6 feet to 8 feet.
6 feet to 8 feet. Okay.
Yeah.
Band is going to be 16 to 20 feet.
Yeah, okay.
Depending on the number.
Sure.
It might be like 22 or 24 feet if you've got a big band.
Yeah.
So the capacity could be 200 people at a specific venue. But when you put that band in there, you've taken up 4 or 5 tables, and now your guest count needs to be about 50 people lower to fit everything you want. The venue's not going to tell you that, not because they're being dishonest, because they don't know. They don't know what you want to band.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think if you have a planner, there's just like a little bit more customization that you get. Now, the other thing that you could do is just say, I don't have the money for a planner. I'm not doing a planner, but I will have a coordinator no matter what, right?
Which would be the day of?
Day of. Having a conversation with them, either get the recommended list of people that work at the venue that you love a lot and talk to those people, or look at planners and coordinators that have a really good reputation and you see them a lot, you can see they're working a lot, and you can see that they have a lot of reviews and they're relatively good reviews, and call them first and be like, what venues do you love? I'm interested in hiring you as a day of coordinator. Can you also tell me like what's your favorite venues to work at? If you start hearing 2 or 3 venues over and over and over and over again, then that's probably a great venue to work at or to get married at. But if you fall in love with the venue and then you get the preferred list, then you know it's a coordinator that the venue backs up. And the venue says, this person does a great job.
Sure.
Here, specifically here, they know the ins and outs of everything. And then you're more likely to have like a perfect match if you've got the venue you love and then you have the venue loves the person you hired to do the planning or the coordinating. That's just a better match.
So a couple gets engaged and let's say today they call your office. What are some things that your staff is trained to do as far as qualifying them to know whether or not a planner is in their budget or like what the step would be to move forward?
So more likely than not, if you call us for full service planning, we love to do it, but I might talk you out of it. Which is strange for me because I'm going to talk you out of like giving me the biggest package and paying us the most money. But the reason why I talk some people out of it is because a lot of times they come to us and they've already booked their venue, right? So that's one chunk of services that they don't necessarily need because I don't have to go visit 10 venues with you to pick the perfect one. You already did that. And then like for us, we have a partial planning package. And with that, we will plan with you just like for a day of coordination package or event managed package. I told you that's a base. We always do that. It's in all of our packages. So we do that, but then on top of it, we'll treat 3 vendor categories like we're your full service planner. And we'll do all those DJ recommendations, be part of all of the consults, help you hire your DJ. Or for example, we're really involved with catering a lot just because the pricing and the menu, everything's so different with catering company to company. So with that, we'd go to 3 tastings with you. And so it's kind of like a light version of wedding planning. We have a lot of people book that because they may have already booked their venue. Their venue maybe comes with a shuttle, so they don't need transportation help. They fell in love with a DJ they met online, already looking into them, and they need us to help with photography, catering, and floral. And then they're okay to like roll the dice on bartender and officiant if we give them some good recommendations and they contact some people. So for that, I usually say like if you've already got maybe 3 of your vendors hired by the time you come to me, I'm going to tell you that the only reason you should hire us for full service is if you really want us to help manage your budget. You really don't have enough time to do everything and you just want somebody to like help along the way and get a lot of stuff done for you because you've got kids, work, whatever happens in life.
Yeah.
Or you feel a lot of anxiety about choices and you just need somebody to tell you with professional experience, yes, you're making a good choice, or no, actually that's a bad one. But so if you have some of those vendors and you're not super anxious, you don't need help with the budget, and you have the time. And I will say the other thing that we do is scheduling hotel room blocks. That is an awful job. Like, it's just really a lot more difficult than it should be. And so if you want us to do that, which we've had some people book us for full service that had done hotel room blocks for a friend, and they were like, oh no, we will pay to not have to deal with that. So if you don't want any of those services, then why not save like $1,000 and go down to a partial service, and you get a little bit of both that way.
So what do you say is something that you've heard couples either stress about, worry about, or fear about when it comes to the planning process that they shouldn't really be concerned about?
Sometimes I have people stressing too much, I think, about how the guests are going to get to and from the event, especially if they're drinking, right?
Yes.
And I do want, let me preface this, I want everybody to make safe decisions.
Yes.
But I also want to hold adults accountable for making safe decisions for themselves.
Exactly.
So, for example, I had a couple who, they were like kicking themselves. They were so upset that the amount of money that was going to be charged to add on multiple shuttles to get everybody door-to-door service to their wedding was cost prohibitive. They couldn't afford to do it for everybody. And they were just so upset about it. And I was like, you guys, you are inviting them to a destination wedding weekend. You've invited them to the rehearsal dinner. Everybody is coming to the rehearsal dinner.
Oh, wow.
You've paid for it.
Okay.
You're inviting them to your wedding on the top of a mountaintop with a gorgeous view.
Yes.
And giving them dinner and free drinks and dancing all night. You've paid for it. And you have some people that are being able to ride the shuttle, because they did have, like, some could get up there.
Sure.
But the ones that didn't stay at their hotel couldn't get there unless they hired another shuttle. Well, those guests, first of all, made a decision when they decided not to go through your suggested hotel and to get a cabin or an Airbnb. And that happens a lot here in the Smokies.
Yes.
I get it, because you want to stay in a cabin in the Smokies in the mountains.
You want that feel.
But we all are adults and can either A, have a designated driver, or B, schedule an Uber. And have an Uber, and I always give people a local cab company's number here.
Yeah.
That, like, they'll answer your phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning and come get you. So if Uber's being a little bit sketchy or Lyft is being a little sketchy, call a taxi, and call a cab company. They'll come and get you and give you a ride home. Or don't get so hammered at a friend's wedding that you can't, drive in the first place.
Now, let's not go down that road.
I'm just saying, because I've had some issues where people, like, made some things about them instead of about the couple. But I think that just being really stressed about something like that, it bothers me a little bit, because I want people to be able to be like, hey, we're going to have so much fun. We've got a ride for everybody and all of that. But if you find out later that it's going to be thousands of dollars that you didn't account for, it's totally okay to put a sign on the bar that says, use your Lyft app, use your Uber app, schedule an Uber now. Also, here's the number of this taxi company.
Okay.
So you've given them the option of how to get a safe ride home. They're adults. They can take it from there.
Sure. So one last question here, and we'll see if I can have you do it in a 30-second answer.
Okay.
And that is, in general, wedding planning or wedding coordination, what would you suggest a do and don't as far as a couple looking at different people in the same field? What would you say are things that they need to look for in order to be comfortable with whatever direction they go with plan or hiring a planner or coordinator?
I think that you could look at the level of work that they do in photos. For one.
Okay.
So if you want an all-out wedding, like I use the example of one that wanted a petting suit before, there's a different level of a planner that does all the things than somebody that maybe doesn't do all of the things. Specifically, you should be able to look in a bulleted list on their packages of what's included and how much help you're getting.
Okay.
Because there's some planners that won't include everything that you need versus others. So you have to be really realistic when you're looking at what's being offered, and not just base people on price, because there's a lot of nuances that make things really different on what we're offering, even though we're both planning for you.
Sure.
Some might offer more support over others, and we just don't want you to be disappointed later on when you feel like you've missed out on something.
Okay. I appreciate that. So as I wrap things up, to all our listeners here with Weddings in the Smokies podcast, if there are any questions you have about anything that's been covered, or if you have a specific question for Lindsay, just put it in the comment section. We'll let her know about it. We'll get you a response. So Lindsay, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much for tuning in today. Thank you, Lindsay, for being here. We hope that you found this episode helpful in the difference between wedding planning and wedding coordination. Again, Weddings in the Smokies is a podcast created with myself and Jake Schick as a way to be educational and informational about things to look for when planning a destination wedding, especially here in the great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. Again, thank you so much. If you're still looking for a trusted professional, whether that be a planner, videography, photography, DJ, officiant, and so on, I encourage you to visit the website, SmokyMountWeddingAssociation.com or smwba.com. Again, we appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in to a podcast of Weddings in the Smokies, and you have a great day.